What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk with your host, Joe Morani. Today, we are going to discuss the NFL and free agency and everything that is happening with that because it has been an insane free agency. I have never seen anything like this in sports. Players getting moved everywhere, and the NFL draft still has not happened. That will be coming up at the end of the month, April 28th through the 30th. But let's go through every single team's free agency, starting with the AFC East, because I think mostly every single team has made a huge acquisition to boost their roster. So, starting with those Buffalo Bills in the AFC East, they made a huge signing with Von Miller, who just won a championship, his second NFL championship ring with the Rams in February. So he signed a 6-year, $120 million contract, $51 million guarantees, $51 million in guarantees, sorry. Huge payday for someone of his age. But hey, look, I'm not going to hate. If I'm the Bills, from the Bills' perspective, they gave him too much money. But from Von Miller, good for him, man. Get that bag and continue to be a force on the defensive end in a AFC that is stacked now. So that he's going to be a big acquisition for them. Some small signings for the Bills. Matt Barkley on a 1-year deal. They acquired Case Keenum from the Cleveland Browns from a 7th-round pick. Jamison Crowder went from the Jets to the Bills. 1 year, $4 million. Running back Duke Johnson with the 1-year deal. Re-signed Isaiah McKenzie and signed former Bucks tight end O.J. Howard. They also signed some offensive linemen to protect Josh Allen, Mitch Morse, to a 2-year, $19.5 million extension, and Roger Saffold. Now looking at these Dolphins. Ooh, these Dolphins are going to be dangerous. I'm excited to see what Tua can do with this team. Well, speaking of quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater, someone that I love, someone that I've been following since his Minnesota Vikings days. 1 year, $6.5 million, fully guaranteed. Now the backfield. Chase Edmonds from the Cardinals, 2 years, $12.6 million. Had to split last year with James Conner, who had an explosive year coming from Pittsburgh going to Arizona. And Edmonds was hurt for a little bit of the season, so he's going to get a huge opportunity in Miami. Now he's splitting the backfield with a stud, Raheem Mostert, and this contract is an absolute steal for 1 year, $3 million for someone that led the San Francisco 49ers through the playoffs in their Super Bowl hopeful year when they won the NFC East. It's a short year. Not the NFC East, the NFC as a whole a couple of years ago. And still in the backfield, they signed Alec Ingold, Raiders fullback, 2 years, up to $7.5 million. Huge, underrated signing, I think. You got to have a good fullback. But this is the acquisition. Out of nowhere, I woke up and I was like, Tyreek Hill's getting traded? Why is Tyreek Hill getting traded? Why Tyreek? He is a stud. He's Patrick Mahomes' dude next to Travis Kelce. Why is Hill getting traded? But Tyreek Hill, man, that's going to be crazy. Tua, you cannot be bad this year. He's got to take leaps and bounds forward. And he has to be good with this offense as they acquired Hill for a first, a second, 2 fourths, and a sixth. And then they signed Tyreek to a 4-year, $120 million extension. Gosh, that's just crazy. And that's a rough one for the Chiefs. But hey, they're either going to make it up with a big trade or they're just going to go with the grouping. But I'm not talking about the Chiefs yet. We're still working with the Dolphins, who signed Preston Williams. So that's a re-sign, Preston Williams. And they signed Dallas Cowboy wide receiver Cedric Wilson, who was a speedster. 3-year, $22.8 million. Excuse me. Dolphins ain't done. They got the huge left tackle, one of the biggest free agents on the market from the New Orleans Saints, Armstead, for a 5-year, $75 million deal. That's a crazy, crazy deal. Good signing to try and block Tua so he doesn't get eaten up back there. Also gave the franchise tag to Mike Gesicki, who is a stud at the tight end position. They re-signed Emmanuel Ogbah to a 4-year, $65 million deal. A little bit of an overpay, but hoping that it works out. And then they signed another Dallas Cowboy, Connor Williams, to a 2-year, $14 million deal. And this just came out a couple of days ago. Xavier Howard, one of the biggest corners in the league. He is a lockdown when he is on fire, to a new 5-year, $90 million deal. He has 3 years and almost $40 million left. So that man is getting paid by the Dolphins for the next couple of seasons. Then moving on to the New England Patriots. Not big signings, but they just had a big trade yesterday. Well, it's yesterday now with this when I'm recording the podcast, but Devontae Parker going from division rival the Dolphins to the Pats for a 5th-round pick. Sorry, that's Devontae Parker along with the 5th-round pick in exchange for a 3rd. A lot of re-signings for the Pats. Brian Hoyer at the quarterback position. Trent Brown up front, 2 years, $22 million. And James White, 2 years, $5 million. They signed running back Ty Montgomery. They traded Chase Winovich, who I think was a stud, young stud, to the Browns for former Alabama linebacker Mack Wilson. Then they signed Malcolm Butler. Yep, the dude that single-handedly won the Patriots a Super Bowl with that big pick at the goal line, that Russell Wilson, who's going to be coming up later in the podcast. Big moves with him. Intercepted on the goal line in that pass that was intended for Ricardo Lockett. So he's back in New England after bouncing around and actually retiring. Devin McCourty re-signed. Terrence Mitchell, former Dallas Cowboy corner, he's going there. And this contract is ridiculous and borderline disrespectful that my Giants could not give this man a new contract. Jabril Peppers at the safety position, especially with Wink Martindale. That's the new Giants defensive coordinator, who I'm very, very excited about. I think he would have been good in his scheme, but he instead goes up north, plays for the Pats. $2 million. Man, that's annoying me. They re-signed Nick Folk. Great year. Probably the best kicker last year. One of, at least. And they re-signed a really underrated guy, Matthew Slater. Big special teams dude. The Jets. Great offseason. Quarterback position, Mike White, Joe Flacco, re-signed. Tevin Coleman re-signed. Braxton Berrios, big re-signing. Then they signed CJ Uzama. Yeah, one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets. He's coming to the Jets. 3 years, $24 million. Offensive lineman, Laken Tomlinson from the 49ers. 3 years, $40 million. They also signed number 3 overall pick a couple years ago from the 49ers, Solomon Thomas. Hey, that is a low risk, high reward. So let's see how that works out for the Jets. They signed Jordan Whitehead, who was on the champion Bucks. And they signed Greg Zuerlein, who had an extraordinary career with the Rams. Went to the Cowboys, extremely shaky. Let's see if he can fix it. Ravens, really nothing. Re-signed Patrick Ricard, who I think is the best fullback in the league, to a 3-year deal. Morgan Moses, offensive lineman, 3-year, $15 million. Re-signed Michael Pierce, 3-year, $16.5 million. But then snatched up Marcus Williams at the safety position, a position the Ravens really, really needed. 5 years, $70 million. That's it for them. Moving on to the Bengals, big loss with Uzomah, but they re-signed quarterback Brandon Allen. They signed Lyle Collins, signed a 3-year deal with them after being cut by the Cowboys. They picked up their new tight end, I guess, and Hayden Hurst spent last year with the Falcons. Before that, he was with the division rival Ravens. Signed Alex Kappa from the champion Bucks to a 4-year, $35 million deal. Re-signed Eli Apple, one of the worst corners in the NFL. Used to play for my Giants, and don't know how he got re-signed after he got absolutely torched by Cooper Kupp in the Super Bowl. And they gave Jesse Bates the franchise tag, and here we go. The Cleveland Browns, man, Deshaun Watson, with an absolute robbery, I think, by the Houston Texans, getting three first-round picks, a third, 2 fourths. And then they paid this man 5 years, $230 million. That is an insane... Oh, excuse me. An insane contract, fully guaranteed. Absolutely crazy. But hey, look, Deshaun Watson, this man was a top 4 quarterback in the NFL a couple of years ago. Browns are hoping that he's still the same after not playing the whole season last year. I love it for the Browns. I love Deshaun Watson. I'm a big Deshaun Watson dude. Not for that money and not for that price. Too much. And now they got Baker Mayfield on their hands, who nobody wants him. Nobody wants Baker Mayfield, and it's a shame. I do like Baker. Nobody wants him. The Browns really need to move him because there's no reason for them to have him. And their relationship, that bridge is completely burned between the Browns and Baker. He doesn't want to be there. But Deshaun Watson might receive a suspension from the NFL. So if Baker has to play 2, 4, 6, 8 games, it could be huge for the Browns to just save their season, not just for it to be a total waste. But I do think that Baker is going to get moved at some point. I just don't know where, but the Browns are going to have to give him some compensation as well, along with Baker, because just nobody wants him, and they don't have any draft picks as it is. No first-round picks until 2025. That's bad. Quarterback position, they signed Jacoby Brissett, but another early move this offseason, Amari Cooper, for a 5th-round pick and swap of 6th. That obviously is a big contract he has. That's why the compensation was so low, but I think it's a great trade for Amari. Watson gets a big number 1 wide receiver. And they cut Jarvis Landry. Really sad about that. Great dude. But he's going to move on to a new team. And I think he's going to be great somewhere else. Then they gave David Njoku the franchise tag. That's it for them. Steelers. They were a team that could have had Rodgers, Wilson, Watson. They got stuck with Mitch Trubisky, who I thought was actually going to my Giants, but he is now the starter there in Pittsburgh. 2 years, $14 million. I'm not hating on Mitch Trubisky. Just think the Steelers could have had a much, much, much better option at quarterback. But hey, Mitch had a rough time with Matt Nagy in Chicago, but obviously he's gone. Both of them are gone in Chicago. So let's see if Mitch can do his thing with Mike Tomlin. Spent last year behind Josh Allen, learning from a great quarterback. So hopefully he can take some of his tendencies to Pittsburgh and try and just continue the legacy of the Pittsburgh Steelers after longtime quarterback Ben Roethlisberger decided to hang it up. They also signed former Jaguars first-round pick Myles Jack. Now I move to the AFC South. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is no longer there. That's really it. Just a couple of small signings. Wide receiver Chris Conley. Running backs Marlon Mack and Royce Freeman. Quarterbacks Jeff Driscoll and Kyle Allen. That's really it But the Colts, another team out of nowhere, a huge acquisition, acquiring Matt Ryan from the Falcons in exchange for a third-round pick, an absolute steal, as they traded Carson Wentz to the Washington Commanders. After he didn't have a bad season, just they needed him to be much, much better for them to be where they want to be. And they have the roster, they have the defense, they have the offensive line to really take that team to a next level. They need a couple more weapons. I think Pittman is an awesome wide receiver. Jonathan Taylor, you can say he's the top running back in the NFL, if not two. So Matt Ryan's going to be huge for this team. Hey, Julio Jones, the dude he was with for 13, I don't know, not 13 years, but it's been, I think it was 10 plus years with that connection between Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. They went to a Super Bowl, almost won it, 28-3, but hey, he's going to be great. So maybe we could see Julio and Matt Ryan, Matty Ice and JJ11 back together in Indy. They re-signed tight end Mo Alley Cox, and they acquired Yannick Ngakoue from the Raiders in exchange for quarterback Rock Ya-Sin. Interesting trade. Yeah, Rock Ya-Sin, young corner. Yannick, he was a stud with the Ravens, so let's see. Maybe he could turn back to his old form. But speaking to another team that just turned the salary cap off, the Jacksonville Jags went berserk. They gave former Raiders wide receiver Zay Jones a 3-year, $24 million contract, overpaid. Wide receiver Christian Kirk, 4 years, $72 million, completely overpaid. Evan Ingram, former Giant, 1-year deal. That's a good one. Giving him just throwing weapons at T-Law because he needs them. Then they two awesome offensive linemen. One is a re-sign as they gave Cam Robinson the franchise tag. And then they re-signed Commanders offensive lineman Brendan Sheriff to a 3-year, about $50 million deal. That's a good deal. So a lot of other just small signings on the defensive end. They signed Darius Williams, who was a starter on that Rams defense, to a 3-year, $30 million deal. They got Arden Key. It's just interesting offseason. They got Laquan Treadwell, who they re-signed. Interesting offseason. I think the Jags are going to be good, though. A lot of people are saying no. I really think the Jags are going to be good. I like what I'm seeing. They spent way too much money on dudes that should not have gotten paid that much. Excuse me. But I think they're going to be good this year. I thought they were going to be good last year. T-Law's got to take big steps forward. They got Travis Etienne coming back, as he didn't play the whole season. Keep your eye out for the Jags. I'm going to come back to a couple months. Bold prediction. Jags are making the playoffs. I see it. Tennessee Titans. Not a lot of acquisitions. They signed Austin Hooper, who was cut by the Browns, to a 1-year, $6 million deal at the tight end position. That's a good signing. Didn't really have a good tight end. Now they got a real solid one. Re-signed Harold Landry to a 5-year, $88 million deal. But obviously the big one in the offseason, Robert Woods, wide receiver for the Rams. They traded him, tore his ACL last year. Well, obviously it wasn't that big of a blow. They won the chip. But they acquired him for a 6th-round pick. AFC West. Oh, here we go. Russell Wilson. I was in Arizona when this happened and looked at my phone. My friend texted me. He said, can someone put the Russell Wilson trade in NBA terms? Shout out my boy Joris texted me that. I was in Chick-fil-A. I said, Russell Wilson wasn't traded. I hopped on Instagram. Oh my gosh. The big trade, of the first real big trade of this offseason. Russell Wilson, longtime Seattle Seahawks quarterback, along with the 4th for 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, a 5th, Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris, defensive tackle, Noah Fant, underrated tight end, and Drew Lock. He's all right. He's looking like he's going to be the Seahawks Week 1 starter, though. Yeah, maybe a change of scenery will be better for him after he split reps with Teddy Bridgewater last year. but a big trade. I think a huge W, huge for the Seattle Seahawks. They got a lot. I think Denver gave them way too much, and Denver is honestly not that good. They gave up that much for Russ. Yes, they have weapons in Judy and Sutton and Tim Patrick, but you just lost Noah Fant. I think they're going to be obviously in the playoffs, but when you put them up against the Buffalo Bills and even the Chiefs without Tyreek Hill, even the Ravens with Lamar, they could be good. The Browns with Watson, I just don't see them making AFC Championship. No way, but maybe I'll be wrong. They also signed Randy Gregory, who faked out the Cowboys. Said they were going to sign. He said he was going to sign a 5-year, $70 million deal with them. I was like, damn, but okay. Nope. He said, sorry, Cowboys, I'm actually going to sign the same exact deal, just with the Denver Broncos. So, good deal for them. Up to the Chiefs. Big wide receiver signings. They got to make up for them after losing Tyreek. So you get Juju on a 1 year, about $11 million, and former Aaron Rodgers weapons, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 3 years, $30 million. I think they're just trying to give Patty Mahomes some weapons, just a plethora of weapons. But I do see them drafting a wide receiver at the end of the month with their 2 first-round picks. Now, with the after acquiring one from the Kansas City Chiefs, but you cannot give the Chiefs that's it. They gave them 3 first-round picks for Tyreek, and you're gonna give this team more picks to draft studs with. Yes, they're obviously probably gonna be mid-round picks because just Tyreek is gonna make that team very, very good. But it's bad, man. They're going to, and if they trade for someone, let's say a DK Metcalf, a Deebo Samuel even, coming off a huge year. Maybe the 49ers want to go in a different direction. Maybe they don't agree on a contract extension. A.J. Brown in Tennessee. No one knows what's going to happen with that. So, look, maybe they'll sign Julio. Who knows? Maybe they'll sign Jarvis Landry. OBJ is still out there. Huge weapon still out on the free agency market that the Chiefs can not replace Tyreek with. He's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. But, give Patty Mahomes, Valdez-Scantling, Juju, Odell, Julio, Jarvis, either one of those 3, or 2 of them. And I think the 4 of them combined, even the 3 of them, could be studs. That could be even better than Tyreek. Plus Travis, plus CEH in the backfield, plus they just they signed Ronald Jones from the Bucs. Everybody's hating on the Chiefs, but I'm telling you, our team is still scary. And I think this is going to be a down year for the Chiefs, but I think next offseason they can acquire a wide receiver, and they'll be right back in the AFC title game. They might still be there this year, but I think it's going to be an off year for them. I won't be surprised if they don't make it to the AFC title game. They re-signed Orlando Brown. They gave him the franchise tag, and they gave Frank Clark at the defensive end 2 years, $29 million. But they did lose the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, who was a huge piece of that defense, but they replaced him with former Texan safety Justin Reed. The Raiders, I just keep forgetting that these teams just making just such big acquisitions. Davante Adams, the best wide receiver in the NFL, just got traded from the Packers. I saw Aaron Rodgers re-signing, was also in Arizona for that, and I said, Adams is coming back. Nope, they gave him the franchise tag, and he said, get me out. Let me go with my boy Derek Carr that I play with at Fresno State, which guarantees Carr is going to get a new contract soon. So, first round and a second round pick to the Packers for Adams, and he's re-signing a contract for, says about 5 years, $141. Crazy. Hey, another team that I think is leaps and bounds better because of just one acquisition. They also signed DeMarcus Robinson, former Chiefs wide receiver. Chiefs losing wide receivers. They lost another one who I'll get to later. Signed Chandler Jones, big one from the Cardinals. And they re-signed their boy Max Crosby to be on the opposite side of him. That's a scary defense. The Raiders are going to be good. Chargers. Just more signings. Chargers got much better. The whole AFC West is going berserk. Mike Williams re-signed on a 3-year, $60 million deal. A little bit of an overpay. I don't like it. They could have let him walk. I don't really like that deal that much. Gerald Everett, 2 years, $12 million at the tight end position. A couple of defensive linemen, Sebastian Joseph Day from the champion Rams, Austin Johnson from the New York Giants, and Christian Covington they re-signed. Then they acquired Khalil Mack, who was once the best defensive player in the NFL, for a second and a sixth. Then they signed the second best corner in the whole league, J.C. Jackson, 5 years, $82 million. Then they signed Josh Harris, who was a long snapper from the Falcons, probably one of the best in the league. The Cowboys re-signed Leighton Vander Esch, re-signed DeMarcus Lawrence, re-signed Dalton Schultz at the tight end position, re-signed Michael Gallup, who is now set for a huge year with Amari Cooper gone. Signed James Washington, wide receiver, who last year was on the Pittsburgh Steelers, now to the Giants. They didn't have a lot of money to work with. Obviously, they had a big offseason last year with Kenny Golladay, but this is just a pathetic offseason for a team that needed a big one. The biggest signing was probably Tyrod Taylor, who I like. 2 years, $11 million. Don't like the contract. Signed former 49ers running back Matt Breida, also played for the Bills. Wide receiver Richie James, who's a good kick returner. Tight end Ricky Seals-Jones, who bounced around the league, played for the Cardinals Commanders last year. Couple offensive linemen, John Feliciano, who wants to play center, so that could be big for them coming from Buffalo. But their big signing was the new head coach, who I'm very, very, very excited about, from the Buffalo Bills, Brian Daboll, who was the head mastermind behind Josh Allen and that huge offense. He was the offensive coordinator. And I wanted Brian Flores from the Dolphins at first. Surprising that he even got fired, but we got a good offensive man. And Brian Daboll, hopefully he could turn this team around. Because if he can't, I don't know who can. Philly, re-signing Boston Scott, the giant killer in the backfield. Always kills the Giants. Wide receiver Greg Ward. They re-signed wide receiver Zach Pascal, who was on the Colts last year. They re-signed their starting safety Anthony Harris, linebacker Kazir White from the Rams. Wrong LA team. The Chargers. They signed Hassan Reddick, who was drafted by the Cardinals, played last year for the Panthers. Also went to Temple for college. That's in Philly on a 3-year, $45 million deal. They cut Fletcher Cox, but then re-signed him on a 1-year, $14 million deal. So this might be a farewell tour for him. Jason Kelce, another $14 million deal. Another farewell tour, possibly. Great starting center. Then they re-signed defensive end Derek Barnett to a 2-year deal. Washington Commanders, as you know, acquired Carson Wentz, who used to play for the Eagles. J.D. McKissick coming out of the backfield, who was there last year, was going to sign with Buffalo, pulled another DeMarcus Lawrence type thing. Not DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory. And he was going to go to the Bills, now comes back to the Commanders on a 2-year, $7 million deal. Probably the biggest thing that happened to them, they are called the Washington Commanders now. I thought the team name was actually going to be Commanders when they came out with the possible options. I like the name Commanders. I like it. I think it was the best one. But they're always going to be the Washington Redskins to me. Then they signed Andrew Norwell from the Jags to help protect Mr. Wentz down there, Mr. Injury Prone. The Bears, Byron Pringle, the receiver from the Chiefs. That was the big blow I was talking about. Not the big blow, but just another blow from the Chiefs wide receiver room. Ecumenimus St. Brown from the Packers. Packers, there's a lot of receivers. They got a new head coach as well. Matt Eberflus from the Indianapolis Colts, the big defensive coordinator there. Detroit, a couple of small signings. Wide receiver DJ Chark from the Jags. And that's really it. Packers, obviously, re-signing their boy A-Rod. 3-year, $101 million. Losing Devontae is huge. Re-signed wide receiver Allen Lazard, who's going to have a good year. Re-signed Robert Tonyan. I think people forget how good that man is. Robert Tonyan, I think, is a top 8 tight end in football. He was just hurt all of last year. And they re-signed a couple of linebackers, Preston Smith and Devondre Campbell. And they re-signed Rasul Douglas at the corner position. That's just a great story. Was on the Cardinals practice squad. Was signed to the Cardinals practice squad was signed to the Pack. And then he just absolutely went crazy and had a great year for them. Now was rewarded with a 3-year, $21 million deal. And they also signed punter Pat O'Donnell, who spent his whole year with the Bears. Now is going to the Pack. The Vikings signed former Packers linebackers Zadarius Smith, who they could not re-sign because they just don't have that much money, to a 3-year, $42 million deal. They re-signed PP7, Patrick Peterson, who's obviously not the player he once was, but Jordan Hicks, a linebacker, agreed to a 2-year, $10 million deal. And Kirk Cousins signed a 1-year, $35 million fully guaranteed extension. I do not like that. And they got a new coach, Mike Zimmer, out. The Rams offensive coordinator, who I'm drawing a blank on, Sean O'Connell, I think is his name. If not, sorry, Sean. But, yeah, he has connections with Kirk when they were in Washington, I believe. So, obviously, he's a Kirk Cousins fan. I just don't like it for the team, though. I think they should be going in a different direction, as Kirk is not bad. They're just an average team, and they need to just get over the hump. But they obviously like Kirk, going to have him this year, going to have him next year. The Falcons obviously moved on from their longtime quarterback, Matt Ryan, and replaced him with Marcus Mariota, who got a 2-year deal, re-signed the best Swiss Army knife in the NFL, Cordero Patterson, on a 2-year deal. Love it. Then they re-signed one of the best kickers in the NFL, Younghoe Koo, to a 5-year deal, $24 million. 5 years for a kicker. You don't usually see that. Then they signed former Giant linebacker Lorenzo Carter and former Raiders corner Casey Hayward, who's obviously not the man that he was when he was with the Chargers. Panthers, who I thought were going to actually acquire Deshaun Watson, are now looking to draft one of the quarterbacks in the NFL draft. Biggest signing is they signed wide receiver DJ Moore, their big stud, 3 years, $62 million. They signed Rashad Higgins, who honestly had a really underrated career with the Browns. I like him a lot. That's a good signing for whoever the Panthers quarterback is going to be. And I think it's going to be Sam Darnold to start the season, but he's obviously not going to finish the season as the starter. Signed Austin Corbett, former Browns lineman. On to the Saints, another team that could have had Watson, but they decided to go back and re-sign Jameis Winston, who was their starter last year. Looked excellent. Really, really good. Then obviously went down with the ACL, and the season was just done with. For them, they signed former Chief safety Daniel Sorensen, coming from the New York Jets, Marcus May. Then that's a safety. Re-signed P.J. Williams at the corner position. Re-signed wide receiver Traquan Smith, who, if you think his name is familiar, he is the dude that didn't get the no call, breezed through the pass to Traquan Smith in the 2019 NFC Championship game. Then the Rams receiver hit him, and there was a no call. Should have been a pass interference. Obviously led the Rams to go on. That was a big play. Saints would have went on to the NFC Championship if that play was called a PI, but instead Rams won that one. A big play that's going to go down in infamy, and not just Saints history, but NFL history. And Andy Dalton, who's turning into an NFL journeyman, was on the Bears last year, Cowboys before that. Longtime Bengals quarterback is heading to New Orleans. Excuse me. And the Bucs just add a sprinkle on top of the cake what has been a huge NFL offseason. Tom Brady retired. Yes, I know. Very, very upset. Very, very sad, even though Tom is 0-2 against my New York Giants and when it most matters. But then he came out of retirement. Only Tom Brady would do that. Retired for a couple of weeks and said, you know what? I'm coming back. We're going to repeat this thing. Brady's back. They signed Giovanni Bernard to back up their dude, Leonard Fournette, who re-signed on a 3-year, $21 million deal. They acquired offensive guard Shaq Mason from the Patriots, who used to guard for that man Brady up in up in New England. Now he's in sunny Florida. Logan Ryan was cut by my Giants. He signs with the Bucs. They re-signed corner Carlton Davis. They re-signed center Ryan Jensen. They re-signed wide receiver Brashad Perryman. They re-signed wide receiver Chris Godwin. And they also signed wide receiver Russell Gage from the Falcons. Moving on to the final teams, the NFC West. Cardinals didn't really do much. There was some speculation with Kyler Murray might be going on the move. Now he says the Cardinals are good. He's looking to get paid next offseason. They re-signed James Conner, who I said before, big year. Re-signed tight end Zach Ertz, who was acquired by the team from the Eagles last year. Then they signed former Giants offensive lineman Will Hernandez. And the Rams, the champs, re-signed their stud QB Matt Stafford, signed Allen Robinson, which I was not expecting from the Bears, who had a bad year last year with Justin Fields. He gets a 3-year deal from the champs, which is surprising. You know, they had Robert Woods. Obviously, that's why he got traded to Tennessee. They still want to re-sign OBJ, who's probably out all of next year. I just don't think it makes sense to sign OBJ at this point. You got Stafford, you got Allen Robinson, you got Van Jefferson as well at the wide receiver position. But hey, obviously I'm forgetting Cooper Kupp. Probably the second best wide receiver in the NFL, maybe third. So, a lot of weapons for Matt Stafford. Then the big signing, Bobby Wagner. That defense is insane. Ramsey, Donald, Wagner. Just crazy. 5 years, $50 million going from the Seahawks to the Rams. What a rough offseason for the Seahawks. Jeez. I feel for you Seahawks fans. That is rough. They're going straight into a rebuild. 49ers, not a lot of signings. They signed Tre'Davious Ward, former Chiefs corner, and they re-signed Jeff Wilson in the backfield. Now our final team, the Seattle Seahawks, obviously acquired Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and Drew Lock in the Russell Wilson trade. That's really in a couple of re-signings at the corner position with Sidney Jones and Keandre Diggs. They signed corner offensive lineman Kyle Fuller. But yeah, that is really it. Just a big offseason. Everybody's moving. No, I didn't expect all this. So it's just a crazy... Look at all these trades, man. Tyreek, Robert Woods, Matt Ryan, Deshaun Watson, Shaq Mason. Did I say Devontae? Carson Wentz. Yannick Ngakoue, Khalil Mack, Drew Lock, Amari Cooper, Noah Fant, Russell Wilson. Obviously, some dudes are not on the same level as others, but it's just still really, really crazy. Just was not expecting that at all. I don't even know what to say about it. It's just absurd. New faces in new places. But let's also talk about the new coaches of the NFL. Talked about a couple, left out a few. Sorry, I called him Sean O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell. Age 36 to the Vikings. Matt Eberflus I talked about. Defensive-minded coach for a team that really wants to improve Justin Fields, so I don't really understand that. Brian Daboll, my man. Nathaniel Hackett to the Broncos. Excuse me. Nathaniel Hackett obviously was the mastermind behind Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Even though he didn't call the plays, that would be head coach Matt LaFleur. That caused them. But still, I think he's going to gel well with Russ, and they honestly want to do good things. With the Saints, Sean Payton, longtime coach, retired. Defensive coordinator Dennis Allen got the nod. Obviously was a one-time head coach with the Raiders. Didn't work out. But the Saints missed out on a big one. Excuse me. They were close to finally giving my man, Eric Bieniemy, a promotion out of KC for a head coaching job, and they didn't do it. That man deserves a coaching job more than anybody in the NFL. He is a monster, and if he does not get one next year, then I don't know what to do anymore. Then I think he's just waiting in KC for Andy Reid to retire. Then he will take over and get his head coaching job. But for now, it is ridiculous. The Jaguars bringing back Doug Peterson out of a year hiatus. Obviously was the head coach of the Eagles, led them to a championship. But now he's in Jacksonville trying to fix Mr. Trevor Lawrence. He was good with Wentz. He was obviously good with Foles, as they won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I didn't like the signing at first, but it's starting to grow on me. Let's see what he can do. Mike McDaniel. Don't like this one for the Dolphins. They got worse at the coaching position. I obviously think it's because Brian Flores wanted Deshaun Watson and didn't like Tua, and the front office wanted to give Tua a chance and didn't want to give up the farm for Deshaun Watson, which I completely get, but I do not like Tua, and I do not think he is the future, especially with Tyreek Hill there. You need a guy that could really throw that ball to him, like Patrick Mahomes, or I think it could end in a very, very ugly situation where Tyreek could force a way out of Miami in a few short seasons if they don't get him the quarterback that he deserves and needs. So they get Mike McDaniel, offensive coordinator for the 49ers. It's all right. 49ers, obviously not a bad team. I just don't like the signing. I think they could have had someone better, like my boy Eric Bieniemy. Lovie Smith, oh, God. I didn't even know he was still in the league. Obviously is known for his time in Tampa, Chicago, and University of Illinois. But this is just bad. They got Davis Mills at the quarterback position, and they're going to go with the defensive-minded head coach at the age of 63 to try and turn this abysmal franchise around. Don't like it. And finally, another coaching change I do not like. Josh McDaniels, who has completely failed as a coach in the NFL with the Denver Broncos. That's why he's been under Bill Belichick for most of his tenure in the NFL as offensive coordinator. But maybe it's better this time around. He doesn't need to do that much coaching with those studs on the field. Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Devontae, and the tight end Darren Waller. But hey, let's see what he can do. Maybe he can turn it around. That's really it for the NFL offseason. I know it was a handful, 45 minutes, just a rundown. I didn't even get through everything, even the small signings, but I try to keep it on a bigger macro scale. But this is going to be a good season. It's going to be crazy watching. I'm going to turn on the TV and say, oh my gosh, I forgot Matt Ryan plays for the Colts. After my whole life on Earth, he's been a Falcon. So it's just going to be crazy. Obviously, A lot of merchandise on sale. A lot of you Jersey heads, Jersey freaks like me, are going to cop those Russell Wilson Seahawks jerseys, Julio Jones Titan jerseys, Carson Wentz Colts gear, Matt Ryan Falcon gear, Devontae Packer gear. So, crazy offseason. I am so excited for it to start. We got to wait till at least August, September to see these real big guys. But that's it for the second episode of Sports Talk. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.